Hi friends, welcome. Today's painting is a scenery whose main focus will be the mountains in the background. I've done a simple line drawing on Saunders Waterford rough paper, which is 300 grams in weight, 140 pounds. Now, as you can see, I've masked out a couple of tree trunks using easily removable tape. And now I'm painting the sky with ultramarine blue with a touch of cobalt blue on top for a bit of depth. I'm being very careful to avoid not painting over the mountains because I want them to remain white. Now for the line of trees, I used various mixtures of burnt sienna, Indian red, deep green and yellow ochre. And sometimes, of course, I use these colors neat, that's straight from the pan, and no mixing involved. Sometimes I just lift them off with my brush. Now here, as you can see, I'm using a small flat brush whose bristles I've splayed out by banging the tip on my palette. Now I'm using it to stipple the paint on in a side-to-side direction. Now I'm going over some of the already painted trees with darker tones of the same mixes to give depth and variation. Now, because I didn't want to bore you, I already worked on the foreground using a technique I've used in several of my previous videos, one of which I've linked to in the top right corner right now. It's a link to how to correct a bad painting. I'm finishing off the foreground with more of the same mixes that I used in the tree line, and the brush strokes you see here are the ones I employed when I was painting the whole foreground. For the mountain, I use a flat brush to work on the shadows cast by the snow, and for this I use a ready-made violet from the palette. I move the flat edge of the brush in various directions to suggest the shape of the mountain. I then go in with a brown oil pastel to add a bit of texture to the mountains. Supplementing that oil pastel with a bit of Van Dyke brown. I then change brushes to my number 3 rigger, and using that I apply a stronger mix of Van Dyke brown to some parts of the mountain to add more depth. I now carefully removed the tape from the tree trunks. And paint these tree trunks, starting off with a wash of raw umber. I then go in with a stronger mix of Van Dyke brown and put in various mixes of burnt sienna and ultramarine blue. These are put in all wet on wet, or wet in wet, whichever the terminology is. I do the same with the second tree, but this time my washes are a little bit weaker because the tree is a little further away. Then, using the same mixes as those in the trees, I use my number 3 rigger to paint in the small branches and twigs. I'm using here again raw umber, Van Dyke brown, burnt sienna and ultramarine blue in various mixes. I now work on the foreground, and for this I use a very dark mix of deep green, burnt sienna and ultramarine blue. I want these as dark as possible so that they push the trees back. I then use my number 3 rigger brush again to pull up some finer foliage using the same mix. If you enjoyed this video, do let me know by giving it a thumbs up or leaving a comment or both, as these help with the YouTube algorithm. the algorithm seems to reward videos that have maximum engagement, so it suggests them more, and that helps my channel grow. And do consider subscribing as well if you haven't already done so. Thank you very much for watching, and I do hope you'll tune in again next week when I'll be releasing another video. I try to release one every week. Thank you very much for watching. Thank you.